There's that interesting voice, that AI voice. And so thank all those, and for those joining us in the future on a recording, hi, and thank you for joining us at our AI Summit for Educators, hosted by Indigitize. As mentioned, Indigitize is part of One Generation, a project of the Tide Center. Our mission is to engage Indigenous youth in computer science education to catalyze positive change within the communities through technology. We provide students access to the skills and knowledge they need to strengthen their communities using computer science. In the last 2 years, Indigitize has served over 12,000 Indigenous students with direct learning experiences. And moving forward, we plan to serve 45,000 Native youth, engage 10 new school districts, train 300 educators, and involve 60 emerging new community members through early certification training and service projects. And so we're really looking to engage in our work in a very holistic way and coming at it from different perspectives. Our ultimate aim is to serve the majority of Native youth by US by 2030. One Gen has multiple initiatives. Indigitize is one of them. So I just wanted to situate ourselves and center ourselves. DNA empowerment, Indigenous languages initiative, National Fund for Excellence in American Indian Education, Indigenous Instructional Scope Project, and Navajo Nation Project, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, translation into DNA. You may have worked with or heard about the work of One Gen in the past. We welcome you to this space where we focus on computer science, including the field of AI. We are curious and want to know if you've previously attended a One Gen or a digitized event such as SCOCO training or part of a community of practice, or maybe this is your first time joining us, so welcome. Thank you for joining us. This is also a practice. This poll is also a practice for the raffle later on. And so just give it a try. Okay, we'll keep the poll going. I'm dealing with multiple screens and windows here. So let me know. I do have my chat open. We do have members of our team monitoring that chat. I just wanted to give an overview of some of the initiatives that Indigitize and our bodies of work. Our AmeriCorps program is intended to get learning experiences directly to youth at scale. We partner with tribal communities directly and train educators to deliver computer science learning with Indigenous students. And other body of work is that we hold communities of practice, which you'll learn a little about today, where computer science educators can collaborate and grow together. Educators who participate join a growing group of all past participants for ongoing support and collaboration. It's really exciting to implement computer science activities, but it's not exciting to do it on your own. And so the community of practice is able to provide that. We also work with schools in signing MOUs with local education agencies and ask them to make commitments to computer science equity for Indigenous youth. In return, we provide grant funding and planning and implementation support. So thank you for schools and districts that we support. If you're on the call, we're really excited to have you. I noticed you didn't put any logo up there. Our initiative is very brand new. It's something we're really growing this year. And so we're really excited. You'll share a little bit more about what we're doing. I'm Francisco Cervantes, I mentioned earlier, Director of Community-Led Design and Implementation. And a lot of my work is working with schools and districts in partnerships. So if you are a school leader at a school or district, reach out to me, and I would love to learn how we can help you implement your vision for computer science education. So it looks like we have about 30% of the people joining us today have participated in a Indigitize One Gen event before. 70% of the group is new. So welcome. Let me see if I can share a result. Yeah, I can share the result there. So thank you for trying out that poll, and thank you for joining us for the first time. Okay, I'll stop sharing so I can get rid of one of the windows and screens. Okay, so for today, today's agenda, all times are in Mountain Daylight Time. In a few minutes, I will introduce our keynote speaker, who we are delighted to have join us today. At 10:20 or so, we will move over into presentations and workshops right immediately after. 3 sessions will be available for each. And so you will use your 2 feet to find yourself, to find where you want to go. You can attend any of those presentations and identify a session that you wish to attend. Just keep in mind there are 3 presentations, 3 workshops, and so you kind of get 6 choices from that. All sessions will be recorded, so feel free to come back to them later and listen or watch them when it is convenient for you at twice the speed, if you like. We will follow that up with an educator panel facilitated by Caitlin Bordeaux from our team. And then we will have some opportunity for breakout rooms to connect and reflect on that educator panel. We will close off the session around 1:45 Mountain Time and with a raffle as well. And so we will be raffling off some fun things. A little bit of logistics. Housekeeping, if you will, about the platform. The event is hosted via Whova platform. And please use the Whova chat for questions. Try it now. Thanks for, I know folks have said good morning, so that's a perfect way to try it out. I am reading them, and our team, our digitized team is going through them. So if you have a question, pop it in there. Please note that each presentation will have its own Whova page and Zoom room. And so navigate using the Whova app, click on the little agenda to open it up, and then click on that room to find yourself in. You will have to move around in between the rooms, per se. You can stay in your own seat. If you have any questions, reach out to someone from the digitized team or via the Whova app community board topic, ask organizers anything. I'm delighted to see that community board being active. And so if you click on the community section in the Whova app, you'll be able to navigate over to the community boards, and you can ask us anything there. If you're having trouble getting into a Zoom or just have a question, want to reach out or connect with someone. Okay. We are right on time. And so we're going to, before introducing our keynote speaker, I'm going to take some time for centering ourselves and space. We have lots of folks on the call. And so what we're going to do is we're going to break out into rooms, random breakout rooms. We're going to put folks into about 2 or 3 per room. And in your breakout room, we're going to ask you to share your name, role, where you are from. And so you'll need to unmute yourself just then, not now. And what you're excited about today, or what do you hope to get out of the summit? And one last thing, what is in your medicine box? And so it's a Saturday. I like my Saturdays for healing, resting, and so feel free to share what is in your medicine box, something that keeps you feeling good, centered, and safe. And so we will have a member of our team pop us over into different rooms. I will make announcements as we go, and I will share this screen with multiple folks, so you have those questions.
We just had a few people join. I'm going to send you on into breakout rooms. We're just in small groups, connecting and setting intentions for the day. Hi, Joanne. Glad you're here. A couple folks just entered and we are actually currently in breakout rooms. So I'm going to send anyone who just joined out into a breakout room just to get to know a couple people and set your intentions for the day. Yeah.
Amy, I got kicked out because of the snowstorm here.
Oh
But
my gosh.
yeah, we got 6 inches, so I just got kicked out of my Zoom on my computer because
Oh
that's
my
hooked up to.
gosh.
So I'll just hang tight.
Okay, be careful.
Yeah.
Snow. Lashana, I saw you just popped in. Hi. We are about to wrap up breakout rooms, so I'm not going to send you out into one because I think it's too short. It'd be awkward.
Yeah, that's totally fine. Thanks.
Glad you're here. You're muted. Francisco.
There we go. Okay. Welcome back from your breakout rooms. I hope you're able to meet some new folks. Thank you for folks who have joined us as well. I'm excited for you to be here today. Before I introduce our keynote speaker, if you did just join us, please share your name in the chat. Tell us where you're from and what you're excited about today. Perhaps something that is in your medicine box that keeps you feel safe, rejuvenated, and healthy. And feel free to use that in the chat. Okay. We'll have plenty of time to connect with other folks as we go. For now, I'd like to introduce our speaker for today. Kado Muir is one of Australia's most distinguished Indigenous leaders. He is currently chair of the National Native Title Council, co-founder of the First Nations Clean Energy Network, and is a native title holder and director of Jawaral Aboriginal Corporation. He is a senior leader and knowledge holder from the Nalia dialect, a family of the Matijishara language group with traditional territorial ties in western deserts of Western Australia. He is a First Nations entrepreneur, businessman, strategist, artist, anthropologist, highly skilled negotiator, and an activist for Indigenous rights and the environment. Kado has participated in some of the most significant native title claims and negotiations in Western Australia in recent times. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Unmute. Well, thank you. Thank you, Francisco. And give me a thumbs up if you can hear me.
Yep, we can hear you fine. Hello.
Excellent. Thank you. Hello. Yeah, so it is still Saturday for the next 30 minutes.
Yes.
So I'm joining you from Australia, Western Australia. And yeah, I do have a presentation that I'll share, and hopefully we'll be able to move on it. So just bear with me a second.
Yeah, we're seeing it pop up. There it is. We see it now.
Excellent. Okay, so yeah, I'll dive right in then, folks. AI and Indigenous cultural integrity. But before we do that, I will follow the cultural protocols of acknowledging the various countries, cultures, communities, and families that we each come from. And my understanding is that this presentation is being transmitted across the world, so not only in the US, but elsewhere. And so a very warm, heartfelt welcome and acknowledgement of each one of those different countries. Just set the scene here in Australia, where I'm joining you. I'm on the traditional lands of the Dalo people in my hometown of Leonora. And my part of Australia was only settled or colonised in the 1890s onwards. My grandparents came out of the desert and had first contact with Europeans or white people. But the Australian experience is very similar to other cultures during the European imperialist or expansionist period. And between 1788 to 1901, 113 years, the population of Australia went from close to 3 million people down to 100,000. And during that period, we had over 500, possibly 700 languages spoken across the country, to about 20 that continue to be living languages today. So there's widespread and intergenerational impact of colonialism and colonisation that continues into the present. The Indigenous, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in Australia have survived and are both rebuilding demographically, but also maintaining and growing our cultural positions, going through a period of restoration of land titles, economic justice. So the campaign for cultural and intergenerational equity is consistent and it's ongoing. So that's some of the context of where we are today. We had a great welcome to myself from Francesco there, so I won't need to go over this slide. But one of the key things to here is that I am one of the few, or the three, Ngalia language speakers. And whilst I do have roles at national level, my passion is preserving culture, heritage, language, and as I transition into that stage of being an elder, having that responsibility of passing that knowledge on. And that's the context for my work in Dilgi Labs, as well as in other areas of engagement. So, Woode is hello in Ngalia language. If you have a pen and paper, or you can screenshot, go to 50words.online. It's a resource coming out of the University of Melbourne that has 50 words from many of the languages across Australia, and we're fortunate that Ngalia is featured in that. And to give you an idea of where I am this tonight, you can see the area there. So that's where I come from. My homelands extend out through here, and we are part of what is known as the Western Desert. So Dilgi Labs, our vision is to basically bring technology and culture together in a way that engages and shares that wisdom, but done so in a way that's respectful, that has integrity, and that strengthens and empowers the knowledge holders, the cultural leaders, and as a tool that is useful to us. So we want to spark that curiosity. We want children to explore different perspectives using modern digital platforms. And I suppose the sharing of my initial interest in language learning systems, or NLAs, and machine learning, I have this vision or this ambition of having a AI that can speak Ngalia language so that I can converse, but also to use it as a tool to preserve and pass on the language to others who may be interested in learning. So that's the commercial part of the impact business that we run, Dilgi Labs. And in our EdTech products, we realise there's the problem that we face. One is risk of losing Indigenous languages and culture. And we also realise that not only are we losing that, in the context of a dominant cultural paradigm, which in our case is the Anglo-Saxon traditions coming out of England, our children face disruption at school at these early developmental stages. And the biggest problem we have is there's a lack of contextually engaging Indigenous content. A lot of the content, even the language, we do continue to have communities where English is a third or a second language, yet the structure of the institutions, the bureaucracy of education, is predominantly Anglo-Saxon and English. And the content that they deliver is contextually outside of the lived experience of these remote and regional children. And so our solution, we've started with, we're doing interactive apps, bringing those Dreamtime stories to be used in primary schools. So we started with an app. We're also looking at learning management systems, SCORM-based learning management systems. And the Mamudidi story, which is based on a small insect, an antlion. We have a Dreamtime song and story associated with the Mamudidi. I'll just move that so you can see if you go to ngalia.org, you can download or find the connections to the App Store and the Google Play stores for this particular Dreamtime story. And this is done in a two-way science method, which is two-way science is a methodology of bringing Aboriginal traditional science or culturally grounded science alongside Western science to enhance the experience of children. Well, not in the classrooms, because a lot of this is to go out of the classrooms into the bush, which we call nature, which is the bush, and participate in scientific studies, but from a Aboriginal cultural lens. So our ways of seeing, our knowledge of these plants, animals, rocks, environment. And that's two-way science. And so the app is designed to enhance and support that learning with the cultural story connected to it. And this is, as I alluded to earlier, this is fulfilling our cultural obligation for passing on alien knowledge and using technology. So the use of technology then, if we're looking at it from the AI perspective, and again, I'll just pause here to give you an idea of the various, the 4 papers that I'm drawing on for this keynote presentation. The learning journeys model over here with Dr. Michael Laflamme, who comes from the US, but he's worked with us on mapping out what we call the 7 steps to in learning journeys. And you can find that paper at the nindy1.com.au website. This document here, out of the black box, is the Indigenous Protocols for AI. And of course, the challenge in AI is that by the time something gets to print, it's out of date. But we'll find that looking at cultural integrity in technology, I don't think that dates. So 2 other resources that we reference here is the Artificial Intelligence and Copyright, which is developed by Arts Law, a independent national community legal centre for arts matters, and the New Frontier Artificial Intelligence, Copyright and Indigenous Culture. So they're the papers informing this keynote presentation. So what is cultural integrity for Indigenous AI? So cultural integrity places an emphasis on being regional, guided by local Indigenous laws and protocols, and for the AI to respect the cultural context and the unique needs of Indigenous communities. And it's crucial that AI systems are designed with future cultural interrelationships in mind. That's fostering sustainable and ethical integration of technology with Indigenous ways of life. Just as an aside, India, for instance, are developing their version of ChatGPT, which is Krutram, which takes into account the number of languages that are spoken across India. And it's built in such a way that is contextual. Similarly, that despite the fact that I'm pretty sure in the United States, you have the big tech companies, but whether the technology that they build is contextual to Indigenous experiences and Indigenous culture is always the challenge. And so that's where the importance of cultural integrity for Indigenous AI needs to be placed or emphasised at the very start. So referencing the arts well, copyright and copyright laws. There's very little, or current copyright laws are only evolving to address digital content creation and the framework for protection. There's new legislation that could be accommodated and increasing awareness about Indigenous rights. So there are legal uncertainties and rights in the legal arena. Currently, the copyright laws don't adequately address AI-generated content. Lack of clarity in the laws make it difficult for Indigenous artists to assert their rights. And many Indigenous creators face challenges in navigating legal systems that do not recognise their unique cultural expressions. One of those of which is, complete lack of Indigenous cultural and intellectual property rights. Here's an example where, during the writing of this paper, the authors sought to ask a AI-generated Aboriginal art. It scored the internet and came up with this design, which is an original Wiradjuri Aboriginal artist artwork. And in the space where there has been such a strong campaign to ensure that Indigenous arts are authentic, AI raises some risks. So that's an example of AI being free, going out there, and then, of course, infringing rights, protocols, and respect. So AI concerns and Indigenous knowledge. The Indigenous cultural and intellectual property, as I mentioned, it raises some concerns, misattribution and unauthorised use, and cannot often verify the authenticity of cultural information. And I've noticed this a few times in posts on Facebook at the moment that are AI generated, talking about, and they're celebrating Aboriginal culture or Aboriginal people. But you do realise and you do recognise that the content is skewed. There's something wrong in the way that it's being presented. And that's where the concerns around AI usage. So impact on Indigenous knowledge is that current copyright laws are not adequately addressing AI-generated content. Indigenous curators are vulnerable to copyright infringements. And of course, the generative AI, as shown in the images earlier, risks creating inauthentic artworks. So there's some of the concerns. In the research that I've looked at coming into this presentation, AI generates concerns around ICIP, Indigenous Cultural and Intellectual Property. The copyright laws themselves have been very poor in protecting Indigenous cultural rights or Indigenous content even. And so in the paper, The Out of the Black Box, the authors come up or present Indigenous methodologies, such as country-centred design, as frameworks for creating AI systems that respect and integrate Indigenous knowledge and perspectives. And there's a proliferation of the generative AI, which I've already mentioned. So integrating Indigenous knowledge systems and AI you have cultural practices, which we'll talk about a bit more, but these are Indigenous values and traditions. So we need to have AI responsive to cultural practices. That's in the development and design principles that come back to local communities and local ecosystems. So there's no, each Indigenous community out there have their system, their culture that they have developed over thousands upon thousands of years. And we need to be responsive to those principles and practices. So it's very important that Indigenous knowledge systems is highlighted and emphasised in guiding ethical and effective AI solutions. So country-centred design will provide some valuable frameworks. Integrating Indigenous knowledge will help to prevent exploitation and misappropriation. And to be effective, we need the involvement of Indigenous peoples to ensure cultural and environmental considerations are prioritised. So using CCD, country-centred design, could promote equitable practices and reflect cultural values with technological solutions. So what is country-centred design? So it's an Indigenous-led methodology and prioritising the needs of country. Note down here, country means the traditional territories, but it's also the whole connection that Indigenous peoples have with the biosphere, land, water, air, plants, animals. And there is an agency and an autonomy of country as an intelligent entity. So in our culture, our tūrapa, many features of country, of nature, are direct relatives to individuals, or may well be an individual, may be an incarnation of so they have that personal relationship. And so understanding country-centred design is an approach that incorporates cycles of culture into research, strategy and technology. Here we have Ngalia cultural protocols, which is my people's protocols, or how we view the universe. And tūrapa is our creation. That's the events of creation, which one anthropologist described as every when as in it's not in the past, it's in the present, it's in the future, it's in the past. So it's every when. And it's an ongoing relationship that we have with the universe. So our relationships then, Ngāmiri, we have a system which I'll reference a bit later called the skin system, which effectively is our relationship with everything, with each other as a social humans, but also beyond our family, our marriage, our relationships mediated by Ngāmiri. We also have, it's a spiritual connection to country, spiritual connection to the dreaming, and that's the Wirin, the spirit, which connects or embraces us all, but connects. And Ngurra country, traditional territories, is our home, it's our hearth. It's not wilderness. There is no such thing as wilderness in our view of the universe. And so we have these systems then of kanyera, which is custodianship, guardianship, caring for the integrity of these relationships. And to break that or maintain that is respect. Respect maintains it. If you don't show that respect, you bring great shame. And that shame can damage your spirit, can damage your relationships. And then we have ngabiti, which is the sharing economy. It's an economy built on a social infrastructure that means no one goes without. There is a responsibility that we have, whether it's between human and animals, human and the physical world, and between humans ourselves, so that our economy is based on sharing, formalized, structured sharing methods. So these are some of our cultural protocols, and they're the sort of things that you really need to take into account when you're looking at a CCD, a country design, country and culture design. So one of the ways that we've worked on this is our 7 steps to learning journeys. And these are an approach that can be adapted and used when approaching any form of problem or seeking a solution based on grounding that in cultural practice and cultural protocol. So hopefully you can see the screen and you're capturing these steps. But in simple terms, it basically means we give ourselves to guidance of the elders. You start with the elders. If you were to take a project that may be an AI design on cultural content, Indigenous cultural content in a community for the students, go and speak to the elders. Explain to them what you're seeking to do. And they will present an opportunity for two-way learning, but they will also identify who it is that should be in the room when you come back from it. So starting with the elders, they'll identify who are the people that have the responsibility and have the authority to engage. Telling stories then becomes a big part of it. Tell a story of the current system, what's happening today. Then you tell a story of a better system. And getting behind that vision of what the better system may look like is with the authority of the elders, the workers, the implementers, the people getting out there, knowing that story of what may not be working today, what could work, and how the vision is to go tomorrow. They identify pathways. They go out and test it. They learn from that interaction, experimenting with pathways. They share that knowledge, and then you repeat. So that's just one way in which using, culturally grounded on country methods of engaging with Indigenous communities. So the learning journey, it's basically these 7 cyclical steps that foster community growth. It empowers elders who are often disempowered by the agency of government or others, and basically brings that stability back to the way in which knowledge is curated and passed on in Indigenous communities. And that's critical as we move into this space of an AI world, where there's, we go through another range of extraction and exploitation, which does not empower, but it actually minimises the learning that can be achieved by engaging with Indigenous knowledge systems. So, relational approach to AI, you've got to recognise Indigenous governance structures, and it's probably in some way this whole agenda of digital inclusion is one in which the methodologies need to look at Indigenous governance, look at our standards and protocols, a focus on well-being, so that we're not doing harm, and especially to those relational connections between country, people, and community. And aligning AI development with kinship networks. We're all family. We basically, that's part of the Indigenous experience. So Indigenous leadership protocols must align with, the technologies must align with Indigenous values, ethics, and relationships, be respectful. Establishing these protocols for data sovereignty is essential. And that's the other thing, is that as the platform of AI is built on data, and accessing that data, interpreting that data, using that data are critical aspects of this connection between Indigenous knowledge and the new technological knowledge. Ethics, standard protocols, respecting cultural values and community needs. And then developing the AI frameworks that foster trust, accountability, coming back to leadership from Indigenous communities. So in the study that Tyson Yunkaporter and others did in the Out of the Black Box, they ran some experiments that led to findings on how AI could be used in Indigenous-led research. One of the experiments they did was genetic computing, which I'll show a slide on that, based on our relationships, skin system models. They also did agent-based modelling, and that revealed that there's limitations when Indigenous knowledge is removed from its context, underscoring the necessity of contextual understanding. And they also highlighted the importance of maintaining Indigenous protocols to ensure relevance and effectiveness of AI systems. So these studies emphasise that disregarding Indigenous knowledge can lead to incomplete and ineffective AI solutions, which basically means we need to be respectful or have a respectful inclusion of Indigenous perspectives. So that was some interesting results coming out of that research. The one of their tests was genetic computing, and this is the skin group systems of the Western Desert. These are my neighbours' skin groups. My people have 6 skin groups. But basically me, I sit here in the Geraldal category. And these things act like a passport. They act like a surname, and effectively are one of our moral laws. So I won't get into that too much for now, but it's basically a tool in our small scale societies that allow for marriage relationships. So me as a Geraldal man, I marry a Bunuga woman, and my children, Geraldal man, Bunuga woman, my children go into the Burunga class. Whereas my sister, she marries a Bunuga man, her children go into the Garimata class. And that's probably in the English slang, you would hear brother, bro, or cousin bro. These are cousin bros. They're bros. Anyway, what they discovered in the paper is that it's possible to use it, but removing the knowledge from context diminishes its effectiveness. And so meaning and functionality of Indigenous protocols are basically linked to their cultural context and cannot be successfully abstracted or applied without a deep understanding of that context. Hence, you go back to the model of using the 7 steps, which will then give it its proper context. So these were the key lessons that they learnt in that paper. Need for contextualisation, so that it can't be isolated. It's importance of consent and inclusion. So I'll talk a bit more about free, prior, and informed consent. The ethical engagement builds on or is the next step from FPIC, governs the way in which address power dynamics, this idea that technologies serve community needs, and interconnectedness of systems. So this is the thing. We as Indigenous peoples are very systems, relationships are an essential part of our well-being, our way of life, our cultural traditions, our knowledge base. The abstraction of those into mathematical formulas or codes lose their meaning and their effectiveness if they're not done within the suitable and appropriate methodologies. So equality and equity then, and this is the point, is we all have equal access to these platforms, but that does not translate to equity. And the impacts of colonisation, the impacts of socio-economic marginalisation, the impacts of restricting access to education, resources, all of that necessitates us to build the infrastructure and the scaffolds that then generates equity. And one of those tools is free, prior, and informed consent. But the currency of free, prior, and informed consent. It's a current meaning it's not a once-off event. So what is free, prior, informed consent? What it is not, what it does, and what it should do is what we'll share next. So current free, prior and informed consent is not defined by the non-Indigenous party. It's not limited to consultation, even when the consultation methods are sound. So some people have this little habit of converting the C not to consent, but to consultation. And you need to guard against that. And it's not measured by majority participation. And this is the perennial argument of Indigenous people, is that we are not necessarily democracies. We do have our decision-making systems and processes. Everyone does get a say, but it's part of we've got structures that are built upon thousands of years of interactions and engagements with and decision-making within our groups. So current free, prior and informed consent is not these. What it should do is be subject to review by the affected group, always meet best practice standards, not be avoided in favour of other legislative rights. So the example here in Western Australia is the destruction of a 40,000-year-old site by a mining company, which was acting within the law. And those laws were inadequate and therefore morally unjust, morally bankrupt even. And not to be overridden by any right of arbitration. And many of the laws are written in such a way that there is arbitration, there is a final say by a government minister. What current free, prior and informed consent does do is include the right to withhold consent, require good information on proposals. You need to inform people. Needs to be early, active, ongoing participation. And the consent resides primarily within the Indigenous communities that will experience the direct impact, but doesn't affect or prevent other less affected groups from participating. So there are just some pointers on how you go about current free, prior and informed consent as a tool to engaging with Indigenous people and their respective knowledge holders. So some of the recommendations for ethical AI use, which are prioritising Indigenous data sovereignty, respecting Indigenous cultural intellectual property, encouraging training programs for both Indigenous communities and AI developers, adopting Indigenous frameworks for algorithm development and design, methodologies, and CCD approach that reflects cultural values and promote equitable AI development. So funding it, fostering dialogue, and establishing mechanisms for continuous feedback and assessment. So in conclusion, a thoughtful approach, development and application of AI technologies must be approached with thoughtfulness and care. An ethical and inclusive approach is crucial. Looking at how these innovations can positively contribute to societal well-being, and the need for continuous dialogue between AI developers, researchers, and Indigenous communities, ensuring that all voices are heard and respected. By prioritising Indigenous perspectives and knowledge, we can create technologies that not only protect, but also enhance Indigenous cultural integrity and self-determination. So that's my presentation. These are ways in which you can get in touch with me. I shall stop sharing the screen now and return to back to Francesco.
Thank you. Thank you, Kado. That was incredible. Thank you for sharing frameworks and steps for learning journey and research students' findings and helping us digest that. I feel like I was often leaning into the screen, so I'm sorry if folks got to see my face up close, but I'm so happy they're able to record this session because I definitely want to rewind it and watch again. That was very powerful, and I feel it's such a wonderful treat to listen to you and hear this morning for me, but however, I believe it is in the wee hours of the other morning for you, and so we're
It is.
extremely thankful. It's early, right?
It's a morning for me, but that's all right. I'll have a good sleep in. It's Sunday.
I know. So thank you very much for joining us today. We're extremely thankful for having you. And yeah, I think I'll share the rest of what we have for our agenda, but we do have a couple minutes as well. If folks, I don't know if you're. I'm seeing some comments coming into the chat. I don't know if you're able to stick around and respond to a couple of questions or comments. I think one of the ones that, I think someone just called out that they wondered if they could use the generative AI artifacts can be leveraged in coursework where students can learn through example, non-example, the true characteristics of Indigenous art. I loved how you're able to have that slide and share that. That to me just seemed like an activity as well. And so Melissa called that out.
Yeah. No, it's a dilemma, but I think it's useful to continue to have the conversation because we do. Well, I do adopt and use the tools quite a lot, but I'm also conscious that we need to be respectful of our cultural protocols.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us today.
No worries, and I'm impressed myself. I managed to get in on time, so
you did great. That was a tremendous amount of content. I really enjoyed it. I do see a question in the chat. I'll read it off from Sue Kaysen, saying this is so generous and thoughtful. I completely agree. Question is, what is the likelihood of building generators with AI knowledge when so much is oral based? And I am really worried generative AI will create further cultural colonization since the tools have been built by largely centering white colonial knowledge. I'd love to hear more about the India example as well.
Yeah. No, that's critical. That's why I'm interested in what they're doing in India with Krutrim, which is basically it's a decolonized approach of building a well, they call it native Indian version of AI, but it is. I mean, I think the critical thing there is around data sovereignty, and then of course engaging and having those proper engagements with our knowledge holders and knowledge leaders. And the last thing there is it's not necessarily our PhDs, it's our knowledge keepers, the wisdom keepers that we really need to empower and engage in these processes.
Thank you. I'm going to actually stop sharing. And you had your last slide had. Do you mind sharing that? You had some great links that I wasn't able to catch. And I know I can definitely go back and rewind. But I just want to give some folks a little bit of time on that. If you can share that last slide I had.
These are my contact details. This one or?
Yes, that one.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Awesome. So, okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you, Francesco. So I'll probably head off to bed, so I won't stay and join you. But I'll definitely watch the recording once it's available.
Awesome. And thank you very much for joining us. And we'll take note of being able to reach out to you. And yes, we'll follow up online.
Awesome. Bala nangola nago Bernie.
Bye-bye now. Okay. And up next, we have our presentations. We have a couple of minutes for between now and presentations, although coming up only 2 minutes, I believe. They'll run through 11:05. You will click on the show agenda on the left.
Hey, Francisco, I think we lost you. You out there? All right. If anyone who is still on, we're gonna leave this Zoom back in your Whova, on your Whova agenda. You'll be able to see the 3 presentations that are available, and you'll choose one of those 3 to attend. And so you'll enter a new Zoom just like you did at the start of the session. So we're gonna go ahead and close this one out and see you at one of the 3 presentations. Thanks.